What's up guys, Ryan here, welcome back to another tutorial, and today we're jumping inside of Octane talking about shadow catching as well as getting alpha channels with shadows. So sometimes I find the settings a little confusing, so I'm going to run down the settings that I like to use and hopefully that helps you out too. So without further ado, let's get inside of Octane and get going. Alright, cool, so here we are inside of Octane, and we kind of have our plane lined up with the ground here, and we want to catch the shadows. But right now obviously we have a plane that we don't want to see inside of our shot. So the first easy way to kind of do this is let's go up to Octane and let's make a new material. We'll just make a diffuse material, it doesn't matter too much. We'll add it to the ground layer and it turned it white, no big deal. The setting that we're actually looking for then is inside our tags here, is we're looking for common, and we're going to set this to matte. So right away, we have our shadows inside of Cinema 4D, inside of Octane. And we got that transparency, and we can adjust with the settings with the daylight and stuff to get it to where we want it. So first thing I'm going to do is let's go ahead and render this out so I can show you what it looks like. And this might sound kind of tedious, but the settings are very, very important. So to get this to work. So let's go ahead and look at our render settings really quick. And so what I have, just so you guys have references, this is 1920 by 1080. So all this is fine. Here is one big gotcha that might happen. It might be a little confusing for people who aren't familiar with straight and pre-multiplied alphas. So right now I do not have straight alpha checked. So let's go ahead and render this frame out and see what we get with a straight alpha. And so here we have our drone in the shot with our shadows and everything's looking good. So if I come over here to single pass and I click alpha, our alpha channels are drone and our shadow. Now, so let's not forget what this looks like really quick. If you have straight alpha selected, and a lot of people do their work with straight alphas, let's go ahead and render this out, and I'll show you why it might get confusing. So we'll render out the exact same thing. We're just checking straight alpha. All right, so now what's happened here is we see that it kind of looks like our plane came back, and you think to yourself, oh, well, the shadow catching isn't working, the render is wrong. But again, if we go to our single pass and we select alpha, we see that that plane actually isn't there. So if you were to drop this into Premiere or After Effects, remember this box isn't actually there. That's just kind of how the preview shows up when you select straight alpha. So whatever method you want to do, I kind of like using straight alpha the majority of the time, but this does get confusing. So I will uncheck that. All right, cool. So let's move on to the other setup where you don't want to render this in the render. You want your shadows separate. You want a shadow pass, not a shadow catcher. And believe it or not, it's not as straightforward as I have found it to be. So it's a little bit of a different setup. So let's go ahead and we're going to kind of keep working in the scene that we're in. But this is what we're going to have to do. So we originally used a material to matte out our shadows on the ground. We're going to delete that material. And you know what? I'm going to delete this object tag too so you can see how we started off doing it. So let's go ahead and delete this material, and I'll start Octane up again, and we'll see that we got our ground plane in there again. And okay, so this is the setup for making a separate shadow pass, not doing it inside the render. I have to make this clear because I feel like it's confusing, but let's go ahead and do the steps. So what we're going to do is I'm going to right click the ground here, and I'm going to go to Octane tabs. We're going to give an Octane object tag here, and what we're going to do is we're going to play with the object ID numbers. I'm going to turn this on, and I seem to have issues with layer ID 1 a lot of times, so I'm going to switch this to layer ID 2. And what we're going to do is in our render settings here in Octane, we're in the render pass settings. We're looking for this render layer. We're going to enable this. All right, so everything disappears. Currently, we'll set this to layer 2. All right, and our drone's gone, and we have the shadows on the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to invert this effect. And the last thing we need to select here is we want to render out the shadows. So as of right now, it looks like we don't have the shadows on the ground, which is technically correct. They're going to show up in our render passes. So let's go ahead and render this out and see what we have. All right, cool. So here's our rendered out image. No shadows. If we go over to our multipass, you'll see in our shadows section, we have our shadows showing up as a separate render pass. So there's a kind of a different little tutorial there. I hope that helps out. It's very confusing. Remember, it's two separate setups. One catches shadows inside the renderer. The other setup renders out passes for you so you can composite in After Effects and stuff like that. So have a great one. Have a great holidays, anyone who's out there celebrating. And I will see you guys next Friday in the next tutorial and possibly the next live stream as well. So have a great one, guys.